Book of Armij, daughter of Jehovah, chapter 9. In the 3rd year of dawn, Jehovah spake to Armij, saying, Gather together the officers of thy traveling hosts, and take with thee thy companions, and go and visit all the lords and lordesses of the earth, of thy appointing. And let thy recorders make their accounts of the affairs of the earth and her heavenly kingdoms, that they may be taken to and entered in the libraries of the Nirvanian kingdoms. 2. Also shalt thou set thy collectors of brides and bridegrooms to work in Kraushivi, and give to thy collectors Otivans, that they may also visit the Lord's kingdoms and collect all the angels prepared for the next resurrection, and bring them to Kraushivi, where they shall be classified. For in the coming resurrection thou shalt provide 12 avalances, and those who are raised to the ethereal heavens thou shalt cause to be divided according to their grade and rate, and have them delivered into regions suitable to their advancement. 3. During the time prior to this, the lords had contributed largely to Kraushivi, and already there were upward of 20,000 million angels capable of taking the third resurrection. The departure of Armij on this visit was important, for it involved the selection of the next succeeding god of earth and heaven, who should sit on the throne during her absence. At this time, the reigning god was with Brahma on the earth. To him Armij sent messengers, acquainting him with the commandments of Jehovah. 4. God answered through his messengers, saying, Greeting in the name of Jehovah to Armij, his daughter, chieftainess. The reigning God deputeth thee, O goddess, to make the selection in his stead, to be crowned at the termination of dawn. And now, accordingly, Armij sent forth her examiners to search after the highest, best, most learned of all that had been raised up of the earth, capable of the Godhead. For 60 days her examiners were at work, and on the 60th day, in the evening, they had completed the search, and it fell upon Thale of Peola, of corporeal birth, 5,000 years. 5. Thale, a tiller of the soil in Corpor, born in spirit in Nusan, 90 years. 5 years in Esyan, 30 years in factories. In the nurseries, 90 years. In the colleges, 180 years. Projector, 70 years. Surveyor, 65 years. Measurer, 200 years. Entered an Etherian Eravagna, and traveled 700 years, returned to the lower heavens of the earth, and was lord in 6 successions for each of the chief earth divisions 1,200 years. Was called by Onavisa, goddess of Nayai Agha, to clear the roads of Shaya, beyond Chinvat, where he labored 600 years. Returned again to the earth and her heavens, and served as captain and general 400 years. Served as marshal 700 years, under 4 different gods and lords, and the balance of the time traveled as messengers and swift messenger. Of the rates in 1,000, he was 999, and he knew the whole earth and her capabilities, could read 1,000 million voices at the same time, and interpret them and answer them, and had even created plateaus. He knew the atmospherian heavens, habitable and uninhabitable, the roadways, the oceans and nebulous regions, knew the ascending and the descending eth, knew the power in different rings of the earth's vortex, knew the Savorcum and its times and places. 6. Armij sent a delegation of 1 million angels to wait on Thale and bring him before the throne of Kraushivi, sending them in her private Otivan and under the guardianship of her chief marshal, with this commandment. 7. Thale of Peola, greeting to thee in the name of Jehovah, who commanded thy immediate presence at the throne in Kraushivi. Of all the honored in these heavens, thou standest first on the list, and are appointed by our Father, the next succeeding God, through his daughter, chieftainess of Haut Saidi. In my stead thou shalt sit on the throne, whilst I complete my labor in dawn. After which thou shalt be crowned, of the earth and her heavens, Jehovah's God. 8. Armij knew Thale, for he had sojourned in Otaias, in Etheria, 300 years, where she had been surveyor 10,000 years. So when he came before Jehovah's throne, Armij was rejoiced to meet him in person. Nevertheless, she first saluted in rank, saying, 9. My brother, welcome in the Father's name, and joy be unto thee. Jehovah hath called thee to his throne. Thou shalt be one of the pillars of his everlasting temples. What I put upon thee in the Father's name, thou shalt consider from him. 10. Thale said, Before thee, O Jehovah, I bow to thy decrees, which come through thy high-raised daughter, chieftainess of Hout Sidey. I accept whatsoever is given me to do, that will raise up man to rejoice in his creation. By virtue of thy power in me, O Jehovah, I know I shall not fail. May thy light be upon me. 11. Penta Armij now raised the light to the highest atmospheric grade, and said unto Thale, Approach Jehovah's throne, O my brother, and hold up thy hands toward high noon, as the symbol of the highest light. For as the sun is to the earth and atmosphere, so is Jehovah to the soul of man and to the Etherian worlds. 12. Thale stepped on the foot of the throne, and the marshal stood at his side. The whole council were seated, and sweet music rose from the essenars and added to the solemn scene. Thale then faced the place of high noon in the temple and held up his hand, saying, I am in thy will, O Father. 13. Jehovah spake in the light over Penta Armij's head, saying, Thale, my son, thou art my God, and thou shalt have dominion over the earth and her heavens for 200 years. Whatsoever thou shalt do shall be of me and my doing. Thy word shall be my word, thy labor my labor, and thou shalt have lords and kingdoms in all manner of heavenly places, and all of them shall be my places through thee. 14. And at the expiration of thy service, thou shalt raise up a successor to thee, who shall be worthy of thee and me, and he shall let them have dominion in me and in my places, and likewise raise up a successor to come after him, and so on until the next dawn of Dan. Be thou joyful in dominion. My worlds are places of delight, and mirth, and peace, and love, and righteousness, and good works. 15. The voice ceased, and then Penta Armij spake on her own account, saying, He who will crown thee will come at the end of dawn. Till then thou shalt hold dominion in the red hat, in remembrance of the feast of lions. Approach the judgment seat, my brother, and I will give to thee in Jehovah's name. With that, Penta Armij gathered from the colored rays of light a substance light as Eth, and made a red hat and put it on Thale's head, saying, Sit on the throne in remembrance of the feast of lions, that I may be honored of thee, and rejoice before my host. 16. Thale then sat down on the throne, and the council proclaimed in the sign, Lion's death. Thale answered in the sign, Dominion of the Lamb. Thereupon Penta Armij said, Council of Jehovah, hear my voice. A new God have I raised up unto my labor, and thou, O God, hear my voice. A new dominion have I given into thy keeping. 17. For 1 year I shall now visit my lords and lordesses in the first plateaus of the earth, for it is a part of my labor for the Father. And when I shall have finished with them, I shall return to my present reigning God of the earth, who is with Brahma, and I will deliver him and Brahma and return again to this kingdom, whence the Etherian resurrection will take place. 18. Provide ye accordingly in all things, even as I would were I here, and number the brides and bridegrooms 160 days in advance, and send swift messengers to Etheria, to the Nirvanian fields and forests in Chan Ashoag, and thence through Salkwatka to Hout Saidi in the Etherian Abaram, finding 6 regions suitable for grades from 60 to 90. And ye shall send greeting to my sister Chuanista, goddess of Oambuyu, asking her to deliver us. 19. Thus saying, Penta Armij and Aux and Siwagon and Hauha took leave, and in their own proper way departed out of Kraushivi, and in the air Vagna descended to the lowest plateau, and so visited the lords of the lower kingdoms. Chapter 10. The lords and lordesses gave not much labor to Penta Armij, for they had long been high-raised gods and goddesses in other worlds, and knew their parts well. But to each heavenly place Penta Armij sent her heralds in advance, and the lords and lordesses in turn sent receiving escorts to meet the heir of Vagna. And when the chieftainess arrived, she was asked in the usual manner to honor the throne, and she thus sat on all the thrones, ruling in very person, and in her presence the voice of Jehovah spake in the light before the assembled council of the host. And it was thus fulfilled in the ark of Cpenta, that the voice had circumscribed the whole earth. 2. And when Penta Armij was about to depart from each heavenly place, she always descended to the foot of the throne of the Lord, and sat thereon. And the Lord went down and took her hand, saying, Arise, O goddess, and go thy way. The Father calleth thee. And then would she arise and depart to another lord or lordess in like manner. 3. Penta Armij took with her 3,000 angel scribes and recorders, 3,000 angel artists, 3,000 angel geologists and mineralogists, besides many others, whose trade was to make reports of the lands of the earth, and the waters of the earth, and the air above the earth, with pictures thereof. 4. Jehovah had said to Penta Armij, Thou shalt make reports of the land and water and air of the earth, and of all the living thereon and therein, with pictures thereof. 2 copies shalt thou make, and when the end of dawn is come, thou shalt take the 2 copies with thee in thy ascension to my ethereal worlds. 1 copy shalt thou put on record in the library of Hausaitii, and the other copy shalt thou send to the Hyperius Council of the United Chiefs and Chieftainesses for their own deliberations. 5. For the Hyperius Council shall determine from this thy report, what is good for the earth, as to whether she shall be changed in her course, or broken up and divided, or whether she needeth Agi or Dan, and they shall send out road makers to that end, or send vortices against her vortex, to break it or rule over it, according to my light upon them. 6. Besides these, Penta Armij had 1,000 recorders, whose business it was to prepare reports of the Lord's kingdoms, and of the factories, colleges, nurseries, hospitals, the hells, if any, and knots, if any, to record the grade and number of spirits in each heavenly place, to record the earthly kingdoms, and kings and queens and their subjects, their occupations and grades, and their rate of corporeal life age, to record the percentage of familiar spirits with mortals, the Fetals, the Drujas, as well as the Ashars and Asaphs, and the temples and oracles in use by mortals, the altars and places of worship, to record the number of Ihans still inhabiting the earth, the number of the pure Ihwans who worshipped only one great spirit, the Druk order, who always have idols or saviors and are given to war. 7. 1 full moon of 4 quarters remained Penta Armij with each one of the lords of the earth. And she then departed, going into all the habitable places on the earth, and in the heavens that rested on the earth. In 10 moons she had completed her labor with the lords of the first resurrection, had witnessed the manner in which the Lord sent away the upraised to Kraushivi to enter the second resurrection, and her scribes and recorders had completed their labor also. 8. And now the chieftainess sent her Aravagna back to Kraushivi with her visitors, Aux, Siwagon, and Hauha. But for herself she had a Piedmazer built, and taking 10,000 attendants besides the workers of the boat, she descended onto the very earth to visit the 4 gods in the 4 great divisions of the earth, with Iawada, with Brahma, with Abram, and with Po. With each of these she spent 12 days, and then she departed and went to Maitrias, the heavenly place, the only lorddom of the earth, where ruled Yug-Saisu with 30 million. Here she remained 12 days also, and the inhabitants gave a tournament and festival. 9. After this, Penta Armij departed for Kraushivi, for the end of dawn was near at hand. Chapter 11. In the council of Kraushivi, the voice of Jehovah came to Penta Armij, saying, Behold, the time of thy sun and stars riseth in the road of Salkwatka. The red star neareth the fields of Abarim. Great Odasan hath filled the sinks and sloughs of Yaswakak. Thousands of millions of my sons and daughters behold the feast of Cpenta. 2. Hear thou thy Creator, O Penta Armij, for thou shalt spread broad the table of my hosts, such like as hath never been before in Houtside. And thou shalt send Obed, god of Oiseh, Givini, goddess of Ipthor, Ab, Shriver of Rivsaim, Raisi, goddess of Esdras, Wishte, god of Zuth, Harava, god of Yanyan, Ragapit, goddess of Zo, and Luchang, god of Adabonaswichahaha. And thou shalt send for the gods and goddesses of the plains of Snow Chang, and for the gods and goddesses of the Chihawogo roads, and for all the gods and goddesses in their own Nirvanian fields, and for the great chief, Shulo, of the roads Dinihasij, and for all the gods and goddesses in his dominions in my Etherian worlds. 3. And yet thou shalt remember of thine own knowledge many gods and goddesses, and thou shalt charge thy companions Aux and Siwagon and Hauha to sit in council with thee, that ye may remember whomsoever of chiefs and chiefesses, or shrivers and gods and goddesses, that may be delightful. 4. And thou shalt command them in my name to meet in the feast of Cpenta, for it is the first in this, my new world. Make way for them, make place for them, O my daughter. Make wide the roadways in my lower heaven. Make my holy feasts glorious. 5. Penta Armij said, Too wide are the dans of earth, too far apart and cumbersome, O Father. More than 24,000 million will be my harvest unto thee, O Jehovah. Great is thy wisdom in Cpenta. The time for the beginning of quarter ascensions, 50 years. 6. Thy gods and goddesses, O Jehovah, and thy chiefs and chieftainesses will bind up these loose heavens into wholesome discipline. I will send my swift messengers into thy far-off Etherian worlds, and bring thy sons and daughters to thy feast. 7. Penta Armij sent off into the wide heavens, high beyond the earth heavens, invitations to tens of thousands of high-raised sons and daughters of the Great Spirit. Then she called her surveyors and table makers before Jehovah's throne, and said unto them, 8. The end of dawn is near at hand. I will give a feast, a very great feast. Go ye and survey the ground from Kraushivi to the lakes of Uchilu in Etheria, and for the length thereof make ye a width in the form of Fede, and the road of Fede shall be sufficient for the passage of 12 avalansa abreast, and the depth of the Fede shall be as from the surface of the earth unto Chinvat, within 12 seos of Abaram, and of the height of the circuit of Bilachowithian shall ye carry the border flames, and the flames shall be of double currents, going and coming, that the food of the feast may be brought from any region suited to the high raised grades. 9. And the ark of the feast shall encompass the whole earth, and extend outward to the belt of Kraushivi, and then downward in 2 lines, east and west, and the downward lines shall be like the feet of a compass, one stationary and the other movable. And the light that extended from the ark down the movable line shall rest on the delivered hosts of Aram, and it shall bear upon its people, that they may hereafter draw light direct from the Father's throne in Kraushivi, and it shall move westward, and be as an inheritance of Jehovah's light upon his corporeal sons and daughters. 10. But the line that standeth in the east shall be a base line and center, whither shall descend the Father's light upon the delivered sons and daughters of the host of Brahma and Po. And because of the ark of Cpenta upon them, they shall remain in their own divisions of the earth. 11. And for the deliverance of the harvest of the quarter, the high raised horns of the ark shall stand to the 4 quarters, east, west, north, and south. 12. Jehovah then spake through Penta Armij, saying, For I will illume the horns thereof, and my new world, the earth and her heavens, shall rest in the light of my roads forever, that no man, having my examples before him, can misunderstand me. 13. Behold, it is given to a child only 1 lesson a day, and to a youth 2 lessons a day, and to a mature man many lessons a day. So in the early creation of man I give few lessons, then in the youthful age of the race many more lessons. But when the race hath attained to full manhood, behold, I lay my light at their feet, and that they may take my lessons every day. 14. And one time I sent the angels of the dead to lead man up to a knowledge of me and my places, But when man hath attained to think for himself, I set up my ark of Cpenta, and it is as a candle in the firmament of heaven, wherefrom my light falleth upon the soul of my people, without any interpreter, save mine own voice. 15. For which reason, when one of my worlds hath attained to Cpenta, I come to deliver them from kings and queens and priests and angels, and it is as the maturity of a son in his father's house, when he inviteth his neighbors, and spreadeth a feast. 16. Open wide thy places, O Penta Armij, a great joy is upon my Etherian worlds. My high-raised sons and daughters shall have great glory in the earth and her heavens. Behold, I have proclaimed myself in the words of mortals. 4 high-raised sons have learned to know their Father in heaven.